Okay, we are. I always say we're live on another edition of the Edlow Podcast, but it's
Technically, though,
recorded.
we're live, right? I mean, if somebody was there are people outside my door, they could come in and watch.
There you go. So it's live to us, but
Yep.
to the listening audience, we are not live, but we are live. We are live on the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. This is going to be a fun one again. I say that every time, but this is another one. I have the world renowned. Are you world renowned?
I do not think so, I mean, if you look at technically, where the podcast gets to, I know it's 100 and some 70, 50, 60 countries it has at least been listened to. So, I don't know if renowned, but there's a world there somewhere out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I apparently have some people in, I think, Germany that listen to this podcast, so I don't know why I don't know why Germany in particular. I'm pretty big with the Germans, I guess, but,
Guten Tag alles, mein Freunds.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so, but I have Tony Overbay, therapist, podcaster, speaker extraordinaire. Is there any other hats I've missed? I mean,
Uh,
you're a dad, a
and a
husband,
grandfather. I'm a
and
grandfather now, Josh.
oh, man, that makes sense, though.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hold on, that's the part where you're supposed to go, "Wait a minute, you don't look that old," and instead I
Yeah.
got the opposite of that. It's like, "Oh, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense." Like,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
wait. Well, the other thing a lot of people don't know about you is you are an ultra runner, or at least what you have been an ultra
Yeah.
runner in
Boy,
the
we can talk
past.
about that. Let me lay on my couch, though, while we break that one down.
Yeah, yeah. When's the last time you did a race like that?
It's really funny. So, yeah, ultra marathon is anything over the marathon distance of 26.2 miles, and I did about 40 or 50 marathons, and then I just found myself watching the Western States 100-mile race, which is in our backyard there in Auburn. It's the Super Bowl of 100-milers, and I was at an aid station, and there was a guy that turns out to be my neighbor, and then he just said, "You ever thought about running one of these?" And I said, "I have not, but now I am." And I don't even really remember why I went there. It was to volunteer for at an aid station, and then, uh, and then that started me running, 50 Ks, which is 32 miles, so you bump up a little bit, and that is a big bump from a marathon, an extra 6 miles. And then after a 50K is a 50 miler. So I did one of those. Then after that's a 100K, which is 62 miles. And then at that point, I signed up for my first 100 miler to run with this neighbor. And then he got injured. And all of a sudden, there I am running the Rio del Lago 100 miler. And I was hooked. So then I ended up doing about 40 or 50 of those, maybe 40, 50 ultra marathons and a dozen races of 100 miles or more. But the last one was probably it was right before COVID, and I did the Kayamaka 100K on very little training, and I had vowed I will train better from that day forward. And then, because you probably know this because of my height, but I love basketball. Um,
Yeah, I could tell. Yeah.
yeah, right. But I love it. I played it all the time, and then I was trying to play defense on a guy that was kind of being a jerk, and I decided I'm going to really like lean into him, and I broke a rib. And
Mm.
so then, I didn't run a lot. Then I got a little bit healed, and then I was playing again, and then I tore my meniscus.
Oof.
And, this is what I like about we have plenty of time here, right? You ask one
Yeah.
question, half an hour later, Tony's still telling the story. But then the meniscus tear really got me, and I put on a little bit of weight. And then a year later, I said, I miss my identity of being an ultra runner. And so I went to the doctor and I said, "What can I do about it?" And it was really funny because I was that guy, Josh, where I was quite a bit heavier than I had ever been. And I'm sitting there and I'm telling him I'm an ultra runner and I really want to get back to it. And you could tell the doctor was kind of thinking, right, yeah, you don't lift up one.
Yeah.
So he literally told me, "How about you lose a little bit of weight?" And I was so offended.
Mm.
And because he said maybe you won't have to go under the knife. And then I go another year of not running a lot and being a little bit sad and depressed. And then I decide, okay, I think I need to really maybe have surgery, get my meniscus taken out. But then at that point, the ultra running part is probably done. And then I remember in my head him saying, "How about you lose a little weight there, Tubby?" He didn't say that part, but that's what I made it
That's what
into.
you assumed, yeah.
Yeah, so then I did, lost about 20 pounds and the knee didn't hurt as bad, and so then I start rolling again. I get a half marathon or 2 under my belt, and then it was a year ago, just a few weeks ago, that I had a couple of discs apparently slip, and then I ended up getting spinal surgery last March,
Oh,
and so
wow,
I had
yeah.
a 3-level spinal fusion, and I was just given the clearance to really start running March 21st, so a couple of weeks ago. Even though about 6 months into the surgery, post-surgery, I did run a half marathon,
Mm.
the
Against
Disneyland half marathon.
against
Yeah,
against doctor's orders.
yeah, well, yeah.
I think wasn't I was there with my
Yeah, you
kids.
were. Yeah, I was texting you, yes.
Yeah.
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 So,
So,
that's a long-winded way to say it's been a little while since I did the ultra running, and it's funny you bring that up because I just yesterday signed up for the St. George Marathon again. I've done that one 10 times. I'm in their 10-timer club, and so that's next October, and part of me does say, "Okay, if the training goes well for that, then I could see myself jumping back into the 50Ks, 50-miler." Yeah.
mm, man,
Yeah.
wow. It's crazy that after all that, you're gonna wanna keep going. I don't understand why anyone wants to run a marathon, let alone an ultra marathon. That's crazy talk, but, it's each his own, right? Like, some people might say, "Why do you wanna get in the wrestling ring?" And I'm like,
I would
"Oh."
think that. When you tell me
Yeah.
this about throwing people around and breaking chairs on you, jumping out of the ring, I mean, I can't lie. I'd kinda rather run 100 miles.
Yeah, yeah, it's to each his own. Everybody's got a
Yeah.
different view, but, the thing is, what's interesting, people a lot of people have discovered you. I know you're a great therapist
Mm.
and coach and all those things, but people discover you from your podcasts. And what I find so interesting about you as a fellow podcaster, my
Yeah.
we were talking off air about how eclectic the group of people are
Yes.
that and I sometimes wonder, I'm like, I look at my podcast, I do a lot of pro wrestling podcasts, and I've been like, maybe I should just spin off and do like a pro wrestling podcast, but I don't want to be that. I don't want to be
Yeah.
like a pro wrestling podcaster. I just want to incorporate it into just kind of this variety show that this is of all the different people I like talking to.
Yeah.
But you kind of did do that in that you kind of paired off your virtual couch podcast and started a second waking up to narcissism. And then you also have another podcast with your daughter.
Yeah, I have a few
So
actually when now, that you a couple of you may not be aware of even, Josh. So this is a great, thing to discuss because, I've thought often of did I branch out to too many too fast? And
mhm.
I'm really looking at that right now about which ones do I wanna go back to.
Right, right. So let's start, like, what was it that made you branch them off versus just add them all as part of your virtual couch?
Um, Great question, and by the way, I it's funny when you say that, "Should you do this pro wrestling podcast?" I've thought that before because you do such a nice job there. Because I don't even know anything about pro wrestling, but I like your podcast, so it has me then listening more to that, but I don't know if I would listen to a pro wrestling podcast, so it is I don't know.
Right,
That's right?
right.
That's kinda
Well
interesting.
well, and that's the idea, like, the concept of my podcast is really, you know, I want all of I have, like, what I feel to be a compartmentalized friend group where, like,
Mm,
I have my pro wrestling friends, I have my church friends, I have my lawyer friends, I have my high school friends, I have old band friends, like, I have other other parent friends, and then a lot of these groups never converge. I
yeah.
remember I had a party one time, I had, like, a UFC party, and all my we kinda linked it to a elders quorum event, and I'm like, "Well,
Mm.
I'm gonna invite, like, all of my friends to it," and they're like, "That's great, missionary stuff," and then the next week at church, they were like, "Seriously, like, Josh had a biker gang there?"
Ah,
'Cause my cousins of our in a bike club, a motorcycle club, and so they
yeah,
all came, and, like, they were just, like, in awe of how many different people were there, and I just was like, I really would like to have a podcast where people can come together and maybe ask questions of people and just learn that, like, all
yeah,
these different people actually are very human and we have a lot more in common than we don't. I was
yeah.
actually just thinking about that. I remember a story where I was in Kennewick, Washington. I was working with Impact Wrestling,
Mm,
TNA Wrestling now. They've changed it a few times what they called, but Hulk Hogan was involved in it and a bunch of old time wrestlers and they had TV and all this stuff. And so I was doing some of the promotion and doing ring crew for them. They rented my ring and I did like a
mm,
10-day tour with them. And so I was working backstage with a buddy of mine. We were kind of helping out with a meet and greet. And as people came in, I remember commenting to my friend, I go, it's crazy because I was in law school at the time, and people were asking me like some of the like there was a guy D'Lo Brown, people know who he is. He was an agent for TNA. He's like, "So what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm in law school. I'm gonna be a lawyer. I'm about done with law school." And he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "That's a great question."
yeah,
Sometimes I ask that myself. I don't know.
yes,
I just really love it. But I was commenting to a friend. I saw the different people, and I could tell, they were just different breed of people than I
mm,
normally hang out with, and I go, the amazing thing is I don't think there is any other avenue where I would have been able to connect with these people, and I was like, but because we have this mutual love of this very strange niche
mm,
thing, we connect.
Yeah.
We become friends. We have a shared connection, and whenever I go anywhere, if they're a wrestling fan, we could talk for hours about pro
Yeah.
wrestling and become friends. And so I have a friend who've had on the podcast, Dark Sheik, who she's a transgender
Yes, I've
Muslim.
listened to those. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I would have never we would have never just because of our groups and who we run with, we probably would have never had any other place to connect and become friends.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's interesting how these different connections, if you just kinda get out of your little box,
Mm.
you kind of find all these different people, and I think that's, as a Christian LD of the LDS variety, that's what Jesus would want, I think.
Yeah. It's funny, Josh. So if we, far be it for me to go on a slight tangent, but then we'll come back, to the podcast, the Waking Up to Narcissism one, but I love what you're saying because as a couples therapist, people typically meet in a friend group, a church, community, and they have these shared, basically these kind of shared ideals or shared experiences. And I just did a first session for a new couple before we jumped on here, and I was going through this. First sessions are a little more structured, but I was talking about how we're all get into relationships where we're codependent and we're enmeshed because we do have things in common, and so it feels pretty familiar to have these conversations. And then what I think happens often is we also want to find someone. We want to kind of guarantee that we're gonna be with somebody maybe for the rest of our lives. So we don't really even know who we are yet. But we got together because yeah, there's something there that's somewhat familiar and common. And now, and I like this example. I love giving the example that if a girl says, well, do you like Jane Austen movies? And the guy has no idea who Jane Austen is,
Yeah.
but he likes the girl. He's like, oh, I love them because in his mind, he's not even thinking he's telling a lie. He's thinking, I mean, if I say I don't, then she may not want to hang out with me anymore. And I'm sure I would like them because she likes him and I like her. And then she might say, or he's like, do you like sports? She's like, man, all the sports. And then if she's saying, what's your favorite Jane Austen movie? He's like, which one do you like? And then, so we do this little dance, this negotiation without really being our authentic selves. And so then you go through life and now you start having kids and jobs and experiences. And of course, we're going to have different opinions and it's going to almost unlock these different things in our life that we weren't even aware of. But now if we try to express that, then the other person, we're codependent, we're enmeshed, and now we start to say, the person says, I don't know, I think we should get a minivan, and then all of a sudden the guy's like, I never knew you were a minivan person. She's like, you know what? Actually, you're right, I'm not. And so then she kind of abandons herself to go back into this codependency, this enmeshment, or then he decides that he wants to do some hobby, and she's like, oh, that I think people that do that, are not very good family people. It's like, that's a great point. I don't think I do want to do that anymore. And then he betrays himself. And so, you're supposed to start figuring out who you are. But often when they have such a deeply shared core value or core belief system, it's hard to become yourself within that structure in
Mm,
that family dynamic. But if people meet because they all like rock climbing, they can kind of bring whatever they want to the table and they're still rock climbers.
mm,
So I like your example there about whether it's the wrestling group or that it's often much easier to be your authentic self when you have this shared activity versus like a shared belief system because that is going to evolve and grow and for some and others if it doesn't then all of a sudden they think their spouse is becoming an apostate because they all of a sudden think something new because they learned something different and so then, that frightens this spouse. So then maybe the guy in that scenario says, you know what, you're right. I probably am not thinking about it correctly. And now, but he's feeling like he's abandoning himself. And then all of a sudden you have two people that really are trying to figure out who they are. They're afraid to say it. And so then they just kind of keep going along.
yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I have so much to say about that because I
Yeah.
think that is something that's a really particularly in the LDS churches, it seems to be a bit of an issue. I've first of all, I it's funny what you said about that about how people kind of like, oh, you like Jane Austen? Like, oh yeah, of course I like Jane Austen. I told my son when he's first started kind of being interested in girls, he was about 14, him and his buddies. I took him out for his birthday and they were talking the first time they'd ever been talking about girls. And they were asking me about it. And I told them, I go, the number one thing you guys need to understand is that I believe that you don't even Like, women don't think the same as men. I know men, the
Mhm.
first thing you see is, are they physically attractive? Most women don't, right? That's not the
Yeah.
first thing. They notice, are you confident? Are you funny?
Yeah.
Do you make them laugh? Do they like being around you? And I told them, I go, "Number one thing is, if you're talking to a girl and you're like, 'Hey, I really love Green Day,' right? And then they go, 'Green Day sucks.' You better not be like, 'You know what? You're right. Green Day isn't so great.'
Exactly.
Like, you should just say, 'Well, why don't you how much time you got? Why don't you sit down? I'm gonna convince you why I think Green Day is so amazing.' And you know what? In the end, if she doesn't agree with you, say, 'Hey, we don't have to like the same band. What music do you like?' 'Well, I think that sucks, but that's okay,' you
Yeah.
know? And I go,
If only.
That
Yeah.
tells them, 'cause I remember, like, sometimes, I don't know, maybe it was wrong of me, but I know that, often I tend to lead with the weird stuff.
Mm.
I tend to lead with, like, wrestling.
'Kay.
I lead with, certain things, and, because I think that's what makes people interesting, you
Well,
know?
and is it also a barrier if if you can't pass this test, then why do we go further?
Well, yeah, I think especially, like, when I was younger and, we were dating when I was in my early in my high school and stuff, when I didn't know what I was doing, I felt like I almost wanted to be like, "I know this thing is weird, but I love it, it's part of who I am.
Yeah.
So I need you to know right out the gate, because if you're gonna have a problem with this, we're not gonna work."
Yeah.
I remember actually going on a date, uh, this is back in, I mean, 2002, 2003, with this girl. I got set up with her. I don't even remember how I got set up with her, but she was out of town. We move out there, and my buddy goes with me. We're on a double date, kind of a double blind date, and I'm on the date with this girl, and we're sitting there at dinner, and she says, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to school. I plan on being a lawyer, but I'm also a pro wrestler." And she goes, "Oh, I think pro wrestling is like the dumbest thing in the world." And I go, "All right, well, and I literally said, I go, "I guess that's the end of this," and I looked at my friend and I go, "How long do we have to sit here?" And he goes, "Well, I'm still enjoying myself." I'm like, "All right, I'll hang. That's fine." But I was
Okay.
like, that was the end of because, I just feel like, if you're gonna disrespect something, that you don't have to love it. I don't even think
Yeah.
I would want a woman who did love it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, respect it enough, and so but anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about on that, just to follow up, you're talking about they get enmeshed and then they start
Mhm.
having different views. One of the things my son is in Peru right now on a mission, and, when you go on a mission, you think about 100 different things about what you're gonna do when you get home, and obviously,
Yeah.
he's thinking about when he has his own family and his own kids and all this stuff, and thinking about what kind of girl he would wanna, end up being with, and we have a lot of conversations about this, just, based on, I think he sometimes picks my brain because of my
Mhm.
some of my experiences,
Yeah.
with this, and so, I told him, I go, I think, there's this thing in particularly the LDS church where people think, there was this old adage where people said, like, any two righteous members of the
Right.
church can make it work. And I told him, I go, "That's true, but do you just wanna make it work? Is that what you want? Or do you want something that's fulfilling?" And so I said, "If all you have is physical attraction and spiritual attraction, that's not enough, in my
Yeah.
view." Because I'm like, because as yeah, when you're in your 20s, you look a certain way. You definitely don't look that way when you get to be your 30s and 40s and 50s and moving on. So the physical attraction probably still there, but it fades a bit, right?
Yeah.
I go, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, and then what happens if, as you move forward in your faith journey, something happens that changes and you're suddenly not on the same page?
Yes.
Then you don't have anything. And then you got to find other stuff. And what if you haven't found other stuff? And I was like, so I hope you don't, just, oh, this girl's hot and she's a member of the church and she has a temple recommend and so do I. And so we're gonna, no, there's got to be more to it. Can you communicate well? Can you,
Yeah.
do these other things?
Did we talk or and I would, this is funny too. I realized that, not everybody listens to every single minute of my podcast and remembers every single word. Because I was about to say, "Hey, did we talk back in the day about levels of intimacy?" Because this is what that fits into so well, Josh, and I think what's fascinating about it is, there's some pretty cool research that shows that what you just said is spot on. You meet somebody and you find them attractive, and that's the one of the main things that we do. And got my hands up here. This is the top. We say, okay, they're attractive. Underneath physical attraction or physical intimacy is these layers, this ladder, and at the bottom of it is verbal. Can we even talk to each other? And then if we can talk to each other, then we can move up to emotional intimacy. Because if I can't even just talk to this person, I'm not going to end up opening up with my feelings. And then above emotional intimacy gets to then cognitive and intellectual intimacy. Because if I can talk to them and I can feel safe emotionally, then it doesn't matter if one's a PhD, one's GED, cognitive, intellectual. And then above that, spiritual. And then physical actually is the byproduct of those. But we start at physical. So a lot of times somebody is thinking, man, she's super hot. And then we try to have a conversation and that doesn't go well. But she's super hot. So we go back up to that. Or
Yeah.
then, we talk and then I open up emotionally. And I'll run into this every now and again in my office where you get somebody to really feel like they can open up to their spouse and then their spouse just meets it with crickets or even turns it back around on them. And that isn't very safe. So, but she's hot or we're intimate together. And if that happens long enough, then it flips and the basis is the physical. And when that's the case, then that's a real challenge, especially as a couples therapist to try to get them on the same page. But the
Yeah.
challenge is, and this is where you're a big movie guy, every 90s movie where the guy has the best friend, she wears a baseball hat and has glasses and her hair's pulled back and he laments all the struggles he has with the hot girl. And
Yeah.
then, but they talk all the time and they open up emotionally. And then finally at the end, he takes her hat off and glasses and messes up her hair. Oh my gosh, you're beautiful. And then they get together.
Right.
That's because they developed that verbal and emotional
Right.
that then leads up to the physical. And I'll find I've been married 36 years now, which is a trip to think about. But,
Mhm.
you get time on a Saturday and my wife and I love to go on long runs together. Maybe we grab something to eat. Now we get to watch our little grandson for a few hours. You run an errand or two. You're talking, you're opening up about emotions. And then you do feel like, man, I just want to, and it's not even a sexual thing. It's like, I just want to be with her. I just want to, that physical is a byproduct of this emotional, verbal, cognitive, intellectual, spiritual connection. And so I think that's the real this ladder that goes up to real intimacy. But but how do you convince someone early on, hey, find the solid 6.5 or 7 and then talk a lot with them and then they will grow to an 11, you know?
Yeah, it's funny, as you were talking about that '90s movie where there's this hot girl and then there's this girl that's cute but not hot, but,
Mhm.
kind of a friend, and then he finally realizes it. I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, "If only the real world actually worked like that." You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, that's
Yeah.
not how it works. The guys would be like, "No, but she's hot." You know what I mean? I try to figure that out, with my kids when I talk to them about that. I'm like, yeah, okay, that you learn as you get older how much sure, it still matters, but it's not, it doesn't matter as much as can you
Yeah.
communicate with the person?
Yeah.
Can you keep it together? Do you have similar goals? Do you have similar styles in parenting or dealing with other family relationships, those kind of things that are the things that are kind of the glue that sticks you
Mm.
together, it's interesting I don't it's funny because I with a young person, you talking to them and then you tell them all these things and they just go and do whatever and
Well,
you're like,
that's what I was
"Well."
gonna say, Josh. It's funny that you say that because another thing that I become just fixated on is people that come into my office aren't people that are saying, "You know what? I feel great. I think I wanna go pay somebody and just kinda run some things by them." Usually
Right.
they've hit a certain point, and I think about this often of can you really go find the tools you need until you need them? And, even couples that come in, because I do a lot of couples therapy, I mean, more than I think most therapists, 'cause it's couples therapy can be difficult, but when you have good tools, then you can really enjoy it because you get to work with this whole dynamic, this system. Um, but where I was going to go with that is by the time a couple comes in, typically one person's been asking for a while, the other person's pretty reticent, and so you feel that as the couples therapist coming in, and you're almost having to you feel this need to I don't know to I want to save all the marriages and I want everybody to stay together, but that's such a me thing because a lot of times it's already a little bit rigged one way or the other. And so
Mhm,
even if it has to, so I've thought about I've been working on a pre-marriage course or a newlywed course to
mhm,
put out because if you're a business person as well, I know it would be a smart business thing to do because it would be great to gift this to somebody, or it would be great to even think about somebody starting off with the right tools. But when I get a young couple in my office, honestly, um, and I'll give you a real quick example. I had this young couple in there, and
When you say young, real quick,
yes,
like, give me an age range, because young to me might be different to other people.
yeah, yeah. Well, it depends. If we're in the LDS world, they're 22 and 23, and they've barely been married. And but anybody really that's been married probably less than 3 or 4 years, maybe less than five
Okay.
years.
So when you're saying young couple, you're referring to, like, young in marriage couple.
Yeah, yeah, I really
Okay.
am because and the example that I had this with this couple, and I've been working with the woman quite a while. She had been through a couple of serious relationships, and then she wanted to do couples counseling early so that this would be a good marriage. And she listened to a lot of my podcasts. I've got a real good framework. My 4 pillars of a connected conversation. We're going to be able to have conversations, and the goal is to be heard. You don't have to work it toward resolution. There isn't a right and a wrong. Both things can exist for a little while. So you're trying to set the person up for this. And I just say, okay, give me kind of anything, a lower charge topic, because the high charge topics are sex, politics, religion, parenting, and finances.
Yeah.
And people often come into therapy and they say, okay, we've got a problem with one of these. Now we want to deal with it. And I say, boy, we are slowing this down because you don't even really know how to communicate effectively. But you want to
Right.
go to this high charge topic. You just want to judge at that point, and one of
Right.
you is going to get really upset. And so I'm not playing that game, but we're going to learn how to communicate effectively. We're going to learn how to deal with the discomfort, and we're going to see what are these unhealthy ways that people show up. They shut down, or they get overreactive. All those things. So you get a newlywed couple in there, yeah, newer couple, and I just said, no, give me a low charge topic and watch this thing in action. And she finally kind of hesitantly says, you know, my family, when we get together on the weekends to all go out to eat, people dress up a little bit, he doesn't really do that as much. And I immediately watch him, and he just looks crushed already. And then she starts I mean, it's okay, and you can already see that they can't even have that conversation. And then he immediately jumps in and says, "No, I can dress up better." And I was like, "Okay, hold on, let's talk about this." These 4 pillars I have: assuming good intentions, pillar one. So I'm telling him, okay, we're going to assume good intentions. She's not trying to hurt you. She doesn't wake up in the morning and think, man, I cannot wait to get to that therapist's office. I'm going to drop the old "you dress like a slob" card on him and then see what he does. So that's and then pillar two is you can't tell the other person that what they're saying is ridiculous, or you don't even believe them, or that's wrong. And I do a big dramatic pause. Even if you think it's ridiculous and I don't believe you, and that is wrong, because if I start arguing that, the conversation is going out in the weeds already. So then we get to pillar three: questions before comments. So I want him to then say, "Oh, tell me more. I can't tell you you're wrong, and I know you're not trying to hurt me. So help me understand. Tell me more about why that's important to you." But you can see at that point his ego is attacked. So and then pillar four is stay present. Don't go into like a victim mindset, because somebody might even make the first 3 pillars, but then he's like, "No, you're right. I dress like a slob, and my only purpose in being here is to provide a paycheck," and so then she has to rescue him. "No, yeah, I never should have said anything." So I'm trying to have him have this 4 pillar conversation on this low charge topic, and it just goes south. And I'm trying to, show them that, oh, it's okay. I mean, these are her thoughts. You don't have to change to the guy, but I just want to, tell me more about, does it matter? Do you care about how you dress? Do you notice that my family is all dressed up more? What are your thoughts around that? But we don't get to that. He just can't stay present. And he's like, "No, I'll dress better." And then she's like, "I shouldn't have brought it up." And I give that example because they don't think that's ever going to be a problem,
Mhm.
at that point in the marriage. And who am I to say, "Trust me, in about 10 or 15 years, you're going to have about 100 of these or more, and it's going to be a problem where, now you're holding resentment, and you're assuming that they know that her parents are judging him, and there's so many things that are made that are unsaid." But I almost think that it has to get to that point for then people to have to want to go to counseling. Um, so it's a challenge for the young people these days. They almost have to go out and live their own lives, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so interesting because I can see that like it was as you were describing, I
Mm,
can see that happening. And I don't know how you address that. And let me ask you
yeah.
kind of a different question instead. I was just thinking about this. So you do a lot of couples therapy. I know you do couples and
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah.
Of the couples, what percentage of the couples that you see when they come to therapy actually get better?
Yeah. Oh, man. Next question. No. It's so wild, Josh, because, I love couples therapy, and even when you get into therapy as a therapist, and I know off air we were talking about there that we could have some fun with this one of, but you really do get in there assuming that you're gonna really help people change their lives and that the change will be dramatic and big, and you don't even realize yet that that's more about you and, if I can help people become better, then maybe I matter and doggone you, mom and dad, like, you don't know that's why you became a therapist just yet. I mean, I
Yeah.
fought that one for a long time. Uh, and then you find that change is actually really hard, and a lot of people come in and they say that they want help with things, they really more want validation. It's the
Mhm.
same as when people find out you're a therapist, normally they wanna know, "Are you judging me?" "Yes, I am." And then they wanna say, "What do you think I should do in this situation?" And when you're a new therapist, you actually give your opinion, which is hilarious because they actually don't want it. They want you to tell them that, "Oh, yeah, you're doing it right." With whether
That's not just in therapy, that's in just general conversation a lot.
it is.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
so and again, I guess maybe the funny part about that is that and I wonder if you get this as an attorney, but I do find that a therapist is one of those jobs where people are going to pick your brain about it. They wanna know what and they're and most of the time they're saying, "Yeah, I don't think I need therapy, but I'm really glad that other people do." And then I'm, just thinking, "Oh, you definitely need therapy."
Yeah,
It's like
yeah. No, it
yeah.
is true, and the funny thing is, too, is, it's gotta be hard for you, I would imagine, 'cause I've had to learn a lot, like, um, there's a quote I love from Joseph Smith when someone came and asked him, "How do you keep everybody so in line?" And he just said, "I just teach everybody correct principles and they govern themselves," right?
Mm,
And, so I've tried to kinda do that with my kids, especially as they've gotten older, like, my oldest son, he's on a mission now, and there was about a year where he was living with me and, you know, I was trying to figure out, "Okay, you're still kind of you're my son, right? You're a kid,
yeah.
but you're 18, so you're technically an adult. So we're trying to give you some independence, but also, you're not paying any bills or nothing, so you're not really that independent yet. Where is the, like, giving you the freedom, and where is the parenting coming in?" And,
Yeah.
it was hard for me, but it was rewarding, like, I actually enjoyed the relationship a little bit. I mean, I've always loved him, but I mean, it was a kind of a pleasure of a relationship to just kinda sit back and say, "Hey, here's what I think," and kind of actually he would joke sometimes, I'm like, "Listen, I'm gonna tell you my opinion, you're just gonna do whatever you want anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna give it to you, and then you do what you want with it, and then when it either goes right or wrong, we'll review the game film, and we'll see, what ended up happening," 'cause
Yes.
I don't have all the answers, and I think that's a good way to handle it. I talk to other parents about this stuff a lot, and I always tell them, I go, "I just always was very real with my kids," and I just said, like, "Look, I don't know if I got this right. You're the first one."
Yep.
I had this conversation with my youngest daughter on Sunday. I was like, "Listen, I you're the first one of you I've raised. You're so different than your other sister. You're different than your brother. I've seen how they handle it. You handle it differently. Every single one of you, when you get to about this age, you're starting to try to assert your own
Yes.
independence, but, you're not quite there yet. So I get, there's a rebellion that happens, and I expect it, and I almost respect it,
Oh, it's
right?
it's necessary. I mean, the
Yeah,
kid's job is to differentiate from the parent. I mean,
right.
that becomes more of a me thing that I don't want them to. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was kinda like, but there comes a point where it becomes willful disobedience where I gotta rein you back in, right?
Yeah.
And I go, "So there's that push-pull, but every single one of you is so different, and I don't know how to parent a 14-year-old girl who's like you. You're the first
Right.
one, you're the only one, so I'm trying to figure it out. Give me some grace, I'll give you some grace, we'll work this out together," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and, like, of all of my children, I've kinda had some semblance of that conversation, and I always end with saying, "One day you're gonna have your own children, and when you do, you're gonna I hope that there are some things that I did that you liked and you emulate them, and then if there are things that you didn't like, I hope you just do something different." I'm not opposed to saying that I didn't always get it right. I definitely
Yeah.
didn't. A lot of times I look back and go, "Ugh, wish I could have that one back," you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so, I've found also what I find really interesting is that that conversation where you're having how much time we spend, maybe there's just a me thing, right? But like how much time we spend managing other people's emotions in conversation where like, you know, just trying to figure out like, how to say something the right way so that they don't get offended, but it's something you feel you need to say, and then worrying about whether they and then if they take it the wrong way, then there's no conversation to be had. And then the other thing that and this is me ranting, but one thing I found becoming more and more prevalent in society in general is these bald accusations or bald things that people say. And then the moment you say, tell me more about that, explain that,
Mhm.
justify that, can you give me examples of that? Where are you finding that? It almost immediately 2 questions in, they're they're not answering the questions you're asking, they're answering all the questions they wish you'd asked
Yeah.
instead.
Yes.
When you have someone in therapy doing that, how do you address that?
Yeah. It's funny, I almost grabbed my iPad and I said, "Let me start taking notes," because now, boy, we are into the fun stuff now. Real quick with the parenting piece, I think it's fascinating. You nailed it with a kid's job is to push back, is to differentiate from the parent at some point. We got this thing built into us called psychological reactance, or that instant negative reaction of being told what to do. It's why we can't do thought suppression. Don't think about a green polar bear riding a bike, swinging a fish around. Everybody listening just did. And so it's wild to look at that as a defense mechanism. So at some point when we're saying, you know what you should do, our kids are queuing up exactly the opposite of what you're about to say. And when one can recognize that, then it's in my opinion, it's much better to go in there with genuine curiosity. What are your thoughts about? Because not trying to say well, it's a loving kind of manipulation, but then when they start sharing your opinion, then you have to stop your inner dialogue of going like, "Wait, what?" "Oh, tell me more about that," because I wanna know them, I wanna understand, and then often when somebody feels understood is when then I can, "Hey, can I share my 2 cents?" And you can even go into the world of like a good old functional brain scan, and they're more open to hearing something when they've been asked about it first. But when I say, let me just get this off my chest, or you know what you don't understand, again at some point, I don't know what the age is, but it kicks into the thank you for the thing that I will now not do and that I will not listen to. So that part's fascinating alone. And I'll
Yeah.
give you a real funny example to me is, and I think I've told you, I had my son, he was a 4-year starter at Lincoln and all league for 4 years, and he set the school record in scoring, and he was like, I don't know, he was recruited, and he got a full ride playing basketball, and it was my dream, and I had already started buying the shirts, and I was gonna do a year on the road when they're gonna travel, and he redshirted his freshman year, and then he came to us right before the sophomore year started, and he said, "Hey, I am gonna quit playing basketball, drop out of college, and I'm gonna become a pro golfer." That was all like in one sentence. And he did join the golf team after basketball his senior year, but he wasn't a golfer. I would take him on the weekends a little bit, and so I thought that was insane. I have bought all the gear. I want him to get his education. I don't know that the golfing is a good example, or a good idea. And so there was a lot of tell me more about that. Wow, I hear you. And then I wanted to get rid of my discomfort by telling him all the things that he wasn't paying attention to. But he is now a pro golfer, and
Wow.
yeah, and he's really good at it, and he loves it, and he's making a living and he loves what he does. And I think about that so often of that was a me thing. I don't think it's a good idea. And I wanted to tell him, I worry that you are missing out on. And then I realized, oh, I wanted to play college basketball. I wanted to
Right.
go on the road. I want him to understand that I think that would have been fun to travel with the team and to wear the gear. And but that's a me thing. And it made me come up with this phrase in my head that to not I don't want you shouldn't be the one that knocks the wind out of somebody's sails. Let life do it for them. Let
Yeah.
life kinda take care of it naturally. But you're right, though, it's hard because I did not think that was a good idea, and currently, all 4 of my kids are adults. They all 4 do things that I didn't think they would be doing, and they are all doing well because they
Yeah.
have found the things. I've got a radiology tech, an esthetician, we got a pro golfer, we got a I didn't see any of that coming.
Yeah.
And it's wild to think how much I wanted to insert myself and my opinion in there, and, I'm pretty glad I didn't. I did what you said, which was I'm right here, and then I think a secure attachment is that I'm not making it about me. I wanna know you, and then
Mhm.
I'm here with you, so you've got this secure base you can always come back to, and we're gonna, like you said, review the game film. I'm not gonna tell you, "Yeah, I didn't think that was a good idea." Told you know, that would be a me thing, and, and that's just been really it's easy now that they're all in good spaces, but for a while, it's like, "I should say more. I don't know if this is a good idea." And those are me things.
Yeah, the thing that's really interesting, I had a similar story with, again, my oldest son, Austin. So he played basketball all the way through from kindergarten, and, he really wanted to play. I mean, that was his thing, right? And, even to the point where, like, I put we he was playing year round, and
Yeah.
then I even paid a WNBA player to do one-on-one practices with him and get him ready because he goes to a small, charter
Yeah.
school, so he was gonna be on the varsity, and he was gonna start as a center right at the gate
Yeah.
as a freshman. So and he shot up to, like, 6'2", real cool, like, shot up, he was big, coordinated. So I'm like, "Okay, like, this is what we were hoping for." And right before conditioning comes up, and it was COVID year, right? So I had
Yeah.
suspect of, like, you've become lazy,
Yeah.
kinda thing. And he comes to me and goes, "Dad, I've decided I don't wanna play basketball."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Come again?" "Explain that again?" Like, we spent a lot of money on this
Oh,
basketball thing. I wanna hear what," and so for me, I always told all the kids, I'm like, you gotta do something, right?" So I go, "Well,
yeah.
you're not gonna play basketball. What are you gonna do?" And he goes, "I think I'm gonna join the choir." And I was like, "Stop. Hold
That was
on."
your second guess, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I was like, I go, "Let me make sure I understand." I think these are my exact words. I'm like, "You are going to quit varsity basketball to become a choir boy." And he was like, "Well, I really think I'm talented, and so does the choir director. He really likes me, and I think this is what I wanna do." And I go, I wish I could say I was as emotionally mature about it then. I was like, "No, you're not." I was
Okay.
like, "No, you're
Yeah.
not." I was like, "You can do both. Do both,
Yeah.
right? Do both." And he goes, "No, I really wanna focus on choir." And I'm like, "Focus on choir? What does that even mean?" And I was like and so, I finally just went, "Whatever, he doesn't wanna play." Like,
Yeah.
there were like, it was argument, yelling, little few tears. And so I just went, "Okay, fine, whatever." And, and then I noticed some things, like, he came in and I'm like, "Hey, you want some milk with your breakfast?" He's like, "No, I don't drink milk, it messes with your voice." I'm like, "What?"
Oh.
You know what I mean? And he's like, "Yeah, I don't eat chocolate anymore either, it messes with your voice." And I'm like,
Oh, he's serious.
"What?" Yeah, and so I started realizing, oh, and then I went to his first concert, and I went like, "Oh, okay,
That's nice.
okay, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it now. This is his thing. This is his thing." Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then he started learning how to play the guitar, right?
Wow.
And then he started, he joined, whatever they call it, Bach to rock, like, kinda like they take a bunch of kids together and make a band and you do
Mm.
covers. And so he started being the front of a rock band,
Wow.
and I'm like, "Oh, great. Now I got a 6'3", blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid who can sing like an angel and play guitar. Like, this guy's got it made." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then
Yeah.
he started getting into, like, he got into every honor choir he possibly could, and it was like,
Wow.
if I woulda had my way, none of that woulda happened, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so that kind of informed me with the rest of them that I can't really push what I think they should do
Mm.
because, 1, it's not gonna be fun for anybody,
Yeah.
and then 2, also, they'll find their thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
so, I was like, "This guy is as serious about choir as I was as pro wrestling when I was his age."
Yeah.
And I was like, "And this guy's gonna be he's more talent." I would say, he's more talented at choir than I ever was at pro wrestling. Like, this guy he's got it made. And so that's just everything that you're saying makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard because I like when, if I'm working with somebody, I want them to they can own their projection. I mean, I am projecting what I think would be best onto this person, and I will own it. I mean, that I would have liked that, and that's what I think is the significant part. And, but that's my assumption. I'm projecting that onto him, and I can own it. I didn't do it wrong. If there's anything wrong with that, it just is. It's
Yeah.
kind of part of the human experience. And I'll tell you what I thought was really funny about that too. And if I remember this right, I know we've had some fun conversations. I am absolutely fascinated by the concept of memory. So I was about to say, maybe I've confabulated this next story, but one that I have in my memory banks is that when he told us that, my wife and I went on a walk, and maybe I even am projecting this onto her, so it doesn't make me sound bad. But I think I remember her saying, I'm disappointed that he didn't talk with us about that decision. And at that point, I remember thinking, oh, I think that actually speaks well that he didn't think he needed to come to us because he made the decision and then he was coming to us to share it with us. He wasn't trying to
Mm,
say, what do you guys think? Because that one, Josh, boy, again, tangent number 7, maybe. I think that one's a fascinating one. I have a nephew of mine that approached my daughter, the cosmetologist, now an esthetician, and my other daughter who has a gorgeous head of hair, my wife, and then me that has no hair. And he said, what do you guys think about me going to Turkey and getting hair transplants? And of course, the women were all, no, what are you kidding me? And then as a guy here who was like, man, if I would have been around, that would have been around when I was young. Who knows if I would have done that or
yeah.
not? But then I just said, hey, so it sounds like you're going to Turkey to get hair transplants. I mean, have you researched it? And he's like, oh yeah. Do you know the resorts, the costs, the whatever? Absolutely. Is your feed full of videos about people going to Turkey getting hair transplants? He's like, absolutely. So then I was saying, so what were you hoping would happen when you ask 3 women and a bald guy what they think about something that they don't even think about, and you put all that research in? Are you really going to base your opinion on what to do on this instant reaction that people that don't know what it feels like to be you, have no idea how much research, know what it feels like to be you losing your hair in your 20s, being a single guy, but you're going to now say, "Oh man, I thought it was a good idea, but you guys impulsively said no, so I think I'm going to change the course of my life now based off of this immediate reaction." So I think
Yeah.
and again, I'm going overboard when I give it that kind of narrative, but it goes back to what we started with. People just want validation. I almost think it's better if the person can say, "Hey, let me tell you a thing that I'm thinking that I'm going to do, and I need you just to validate me."
Mm,
I mean, that's
yeah.
essentially what he needed.
But you can't expect people to be that honest. Come on
No,
now.
not at
Nobody
all. Yeah.
nobody's ever that honest anymore.
No,
You
no.
know, you brought up something, you that I wanted to ask you about, and this might be a little bit of a shifting gears, but walk with me. It might take a minute for me to get
Okay.
through it. Let me explain, what we're doing, and this is something that I've thought about a lot. And you've got a whole podcast on narcissism.
That's right. That's where we started an hour ago, huh, with
Yeah,
some
I yeah, but let me explain where I'm going. So,
Yes.
can you I know it's really in depth, but can you give, like, a kind of a broad definition of what narcissism is?
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, a real quick one is it's basically like this series of childhood coping and defense mechanisms that, where people were raised in a way that they had modeled to them, unhealthy relationships where they weren't seen or there was no curiosity or no validation. So then, um, man, I almost want to. You don't edit yours, do you?
I don't. I
Okay, because
don't.
I was gonna
No.
say, I really I think about this a lot, Josh, because I actually think the diagnostic criteria of narcissism is, and this goes into the whole reason I started the podcast, because narcissism gets thrown around so much. It's that concept where, everybody's dog or cat or boss or ex or whoever is narcissistic. And then it's funny because when people throw that out there, it's like they now have to defend themselves against the thing that they don't even know if they are. Or so narcissistic personality disorder itself is maybe 3 to 5% of the population, depending on what research you look at. But I started that podcast because I really wanted to make the point that we're all emotionally immature. And so people throw that out there, but nobody wants to be told they're a narcissist or called a narcissist. And but if somebody is hearing these are the traits of people who are emotionally immature, I think they're more willing to, to lean in and hear it more. But so
Right.
to me, it's like, so here, narcissistic personality disorder, if you don't go into the diagnostic criteria, to me though, it's a series of coping strategies, coping mechanisms that started as more of this adaptation to like a childhood family situation. There's a author named Eleanor Greenberg that this is her definition, and I love it so much. So then it leaves that person because of this childhood family dynamic that it leaves the person with unstable self-esteem, and inability to regulate that self-esteem without external validation, needing to interact with somebody else, and then low empathy. And so when you put all those together, I can kind of overgeneralize that they just need another human to interact with to know that they exist. But when they interact with that human, they put them in the one down position. So they just
Mhm.
need you to start talking, so then they can tell you what you don't understand, how that makes them feel. Oh, you think you're better than me, or even a victim role is taking a one up position. So it isn't this genuine relationship. It's this relationship where they there's a concept of like this antagonistic attachment style where they just need another thing to in essence feed off of in order to exist. But that lack of empathy, they're not thinking about it as I'm sucking the life out of my partner, because they
Mhm.
just need to interact with that partner to know that they're okay. And so
Mhm.
that's why they're dealing with things, in the moment, and
Mhm.
there's so many inconsistencies, and there's so much there. So I don't know if that helps a little bit.
It does. I think, that there's a broader question. There's a question I wanna get to, but
Okay.
before we get to it, I want to define some terms. So,
Okay.
narcissism, we've kinda talked about that. The next one that I wanted to talk about was reactive abuse,
Yeah.
which I understand is a term that describes a situation where, like, a person is being abused or mistreated, right? And then they react in an emotional way that looks or mirrors similarly to abuse or mistreatment,
Yeah.
and then the original abuser looks at them and goes,
Yeah.
"You're the abusive one,"
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then we have a concept that I know that is kinda synonymous with, narcissism, which is confabulation,
Yeah.
which is this concept, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the concept of that somebody who maybe they're getting caught in something where maybe they did something wrong or whatever, and they go, "Well, that's not really what happened. It happened this other way." And they confabulate a narrative. They create a narrative in their own mind where it's like an alternate reality where it's a similar situation, but maybe they interpret different intentions. Am I getting it right, or how would
Yeah.
you describe it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because the confabulation is one that I ran into a few years ago, and I don't think it's talked about enough,
Mhm,
because to a point, I think we all confabulate in a sense, because the confabulated narrative is, if I don't remember something exactly, because and that's where I go back to memory is so fallible.
mhm,
Memory's pieced together. Memory isn't this complete recollection of like on a computer. It doesn't bring up every single thing of a, so we put memory together by like a little flash moments, and we fill in the backstory of memory. And what confabulation is let's say that somebody was like I had one earlier just this week where this guy was not even close to being present in one of his kids the birth when his wife really needed him, and but he cannot allow himself to acknowledge that's the case.
mhm,
And so he's created an entire narrative of her literally saying, "I no, I need you to go do these other things first." And so now it's like it couldn't be that he wasn't there for her. So he's created a story, a narrative, filled in the gaps of his memory with that she is the one that asked him to not be there. And as a matter of fact, he fought against that. He can't even believe that she didn't want him at the birth, and now he even tells the kids that. And the thing about confabulation is it isn't just it isn't so I just did an episode on confabulation, gaslighting, and lying, and the difference of those. And
mhm.
I mean, confabulation is one where then it is their truth. And that's why people can gaslight so well with a confabulated memory, because that is what happened to them. Because it couldn't have
Yeah.
happened any other way, or that would have meant that they are not the person they think they are.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that I find so fascinating about this concept because I feel like, before I ask the real question I'm trying to get to and have been
Yeah.
trying to get to for a while, is, I've noticed that these terms,
Yeah.
I call it like we've become a meme therapy culture
Oh,
where, like,
yeah.
people will, like, look at a reel for 30 seconds, and they'll be like, "Here's 5 ways to spot a narcissist," right?
Yeah.
And then you're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, wait a minute, 3 of those things my spouse does. He must be a narcissist," right?
Totally.
Or like, everything now is gaslighting. I gotta tell you, I've talked to a lot of women. I've talked to a lot of women who are, in either a second marriage maybe, or they've been divorced, or they were in a long-term relationship. They, broke it off or whatever. And I think that the vast, vast, vast majority of them believe that they were married or in a relationship with a narcissist. And if it's only 3 to 5% of the population,
Yeah.
they can't all be narcissists, right?
No.
And men too, like you talk to them and it's the same, that everyone's just pointing at each other. And so my question for you as a therapist in this is,
Yeah.
okay, so you meeting with one person and they're telling you this story, and it appears that someone is a narcissist, either the person you're meeting with or possibly the person who they're with. Like, with terms like narcissism and then also an idea of reactive abuse, where reactive abuse very much can look like regular abuse, and
Yeah.
confabulation and gaslighting.
Yeah.
How can you tell when someone comes to you and tells a story, whether you're dealing with someone who is a victim of abuse, a reactive abuser, right, or whatever you would call it? I don't know if that's in the right word. Or how do you know that they're not just a narcissist confabulating a story
Yeah.
that they believe, right? They believe. How can you figure that out?
So it's really interesting, and I was looking up. Oh, hey, my microphone fell down. I was looking for. I just was writing about this over the weekend a lot, and this is kind of what I came up with because and I'm not. I realize it might sound like I'm trying to get out of the question, and I am so not because is that so first of all, like the reactive abuse is a fascinating. Oh no, this will play into the bigger thing. So it's basically pattern recognition, and so I interviewed my dentist. I haven't released this episode yet, and I brought him on almost just. He doesn't know this, but for one concept, one clip, and it's that I will often say to somebody that your dentist knows you don't floss. You can floss for 3 days, 5 days, a week, 2 weeks before you go to the dentist, and you can tell him, "No, I floss," and he knows you don't. You don't floss and so it's this pattern recognition. And so I was thinking about this, and it's almost like it's life doesn't let you cram for it like you did a test, where then people will cram for a test, they'll get the answers right, but then it has such a short shelf life that then they go right back to the person that they are. And
Mhm,
so when people are telling me stories, there's such a difference. There's this. It's called impression management, and it's where people try to control how others perceive them by
mhm,
presenting what they think is the right image, and I think we all do it to some degree. But impression management works in the short term, and it doesn't work in ongoing relationships. So when somebody's telling me a story, they're either showing me this is what I think is the right thing to say, or they're showing me that there's like a consistency, a pattern of behavior that is what you see when you've been doing therapy for 20 something years of the way things kind of naturally progress versus somebody telling me the things that they are pretty sure that they think somebody would say or do. So when they're
mhm,
telling me stories about their spouse, I either know that that story is consistent with somebody that has been trying to feel heard and understood in their relationship for years versus somebody that's trying to convince me that their spouse is the problem. And
mhm,
it's almost simple, I have to admit,
mhm,
because it's such a different vibe of somebody coming in and continually thinking that they're the problem, which is
mhm,
what I typically see, versus somebody
mhm,
coming in and telling me that their spouse is the problem. And
mhm,
and it can almost be that simple. And that's why in the Waking Up to Narcissism podcast, I say so often that if you are asking yourself if you are the narcissist, you're not. You're just
mhm,
not, because you're asking yourself if you're the narcissist. You're the one that's going to therapy asking that. You're listening to podcasts. But there's a version of that where the person's like, oh, am I the narcissist? Nope. Okay. Never think about it again. But I'm working with
mhm,
people that are begging me to tell them that they're narcissistic. They're
mhm,
continually, hey, another idea. I think I've got it figured out. Now you'll believe me that I'm the narcissist. And that is not the way that it works. No narcissist has ever continually tried to convince me that they're the narcissist. They dismiss
mhm,
it. They tell me how bad their partner is. So
mhm,
that's the stuff that I think it gets dangerous with the therapy culture as well,
mhm.
in videos, because yeah, you're right. You can just say a thing. I just did a whole episode on how destructive this can be because
Yeah.
because it's actually giving people bad advice as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you sit there and I remember seeing this one time where I was, like, watching this woman, and she was talking about all this narcissism stuff, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, "It just sounds like things my kids do." You know what I mean? And I'm like, "Are they all narcissists?" Like, and I just went like, "What is this woman even like, what is her credentials?" And I looked her
Yeah.
up and she didn't have any.
No.
You know what I mean? If she was just some, like, person out there saying, "Oh, yeah, this is what they're this is what a narcissist will do. This is their intention." And I think the thing that's hard is you mentioned one of your pillars is always assume good intentions. But
Yeah.
if you're watching that and assuming, "Oh, man, I'm dealing with a narcissist," you're assuming bad intentions,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question that came up though while you were talking about that. So, can you have somebody who's saying, "Well, I think I'm the narcissist." You're going, "Okay, he's not a narcissist," but that person could still be the toxic one in the relationship, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, because
alright.
they could be, I mean, because now we're into the I wanna say, like, the levels of emotional immaturity, and because there can be a version of that that is so desperate for validation
Mhm.
that they are gonna drive their partner, I don't wanna say insane, but that because that now they're bringing stuff in from their childhood, never
Yeah,
feeling seen, never being understood, and so then that is an unquenchable need for validation, and so then they will continually say, "Well, wait, do you like this thing? Do you like that thing? You didn't tell me how much you like the dinner I made, or you didn't." And so that person that they're in the relationship with is going to eventually shut down because they're gonna feel like it doesn't matter what I say, doesn't matter what I do. I'm always going to hear that I didn't do it enough or I did it wrong, and that is going to destabilize the relationship.
yeah. The thing that's, I think, so interesting about this is I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine. We were talking about this type of stuff, and I think that the people who haven't gone through it, they they can be empathetic, but not really,
Right, for sure.
because they haven't experienced it. Like, the perniciousness, the sneakiness of it is so like, I've heard you on your podcast say it's death by a thousand paper cuts, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like a long term over the course of time, they're not able to you're not able to get it right with
Yeah.
them. Like, I heard someone recently say to me, um, "You the only way to win against a narcissist is to not play the game."
Yeah.
Right? And
Yep.
it's like, because you get into this thing where it's like a game of human chess, and if you wanna make it work, you gotta play it. You gotta play it. And so
Mm.
you're doing things differently then because they're you know that you're always kinda wondering what's really underneath, and then you find out, and it's just so people I don't think understand, like, it's not like getting punched in the face.
No.
It's one of these things where slowly over time you just you can't get it right, you do everything you can to try to get it right, and then you can't. You can never get it right.
Never.
Yeah, and then you lose it,
Yep.
right? And then you just lose your mind trying to figure it out, and then you know, and that kind of I think that, like, and I don't know necessarily if it's true or not, but, like, you get, like, it takes a long time to get over that,
Oh, it does.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, because and because I look at that as, man, there's so many things, Josh, that I appreciate that you're saying because, the people don't understand it, and I'm gonna sound like I have an episode for everything because I do. I love talking about this stuff so much, but I just did an updated one on what I call Switzerland friends, and then there's also the flying monkeys or the phrases around the narcissist. And the Switzerland friend is somebody that's like, "Hey, there's 2 sides to every story." And when you've been one who has been continually put in this one down position and not heard and not understood, that Switzerland friend, I bless their heart, they think they're doing the right thing by not picking sides, but you just feel even more misunderstood. And then the flying monkey is one who is they're still kind of convinced that they'll talk to you. They'll might maybe even validate you, but then they're gonna take that to the narcissistic person because they're gonna think, "No, if I can just explain this, then this person will understand. The narcissist will understand it now." And so they just hand them more things that the narcissist will go attack their partner with. and too often that's the person that is in that position. And it's interesting because, boy, projection is a thing I think we all need to understand more, because the person that's never been in that situation is projecting onto you that, well, I mean, it can't be that bad, because if I was in your position, I would just tell them. I would just tell the narcissist, you need to knock it off. So here's what you need to do. So they're projecting it. And then what's so difficult about that is the person that's been in that one down position with the narcissist is so desperate to be understood and heard, that now they're going to try to explain it to the person that doesn't understand it. And it's going to mimic the dynamic of interacting with the narcissist, because that
Yeah.
person, right, is going to think they're helping, but they're just, well, have you thought about this? Have you done? And
It,
they're going to still, the person in the relationship is going to feel insane because,
I was just about to say it's enough to make you crazy.
yeah,
Because you just
yeah,
you look at it and you're just like, well, you just don't know, right? You don't know
uh
you don't know what you don't know,
yeah,
right? And you said, well, it's hard when like you have experienced serious hurt and pain and you know that the other person knows it. Like you know that this person who's the Switzerland friend knows it,
yeah,
but they're not mad for you. You see
yes,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
not offended on your behalf.
yeah,
And when you dealt with somebody on the other side who is projecting everything to you, and if you're somebody who is introspective and will look at yourself, it's the kind of person they like, right?
mhm,
You'll start wondering if you were the problem. And then if you have a if you have a Switzerland friend who is like, "Oh, I'm sorry all that happened to you," but then they're still being
interacting
friendly
with
to
it, yes, like the
interacting and
narcissist,
being friendly and wanting
yeah,
to invite them to things and be there.
oh,
You sit there and you go, "Well, shoot, maybe I am the,"
right,
like, and then you go, but I've," "this is all the stuff I went through. Why are they not upset for me? I thought that they cared." You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
It's
oh,
and the Switzer and the thing that's interesting about that, because I had this conversation, so I went and visited some friends, long time friends, and, I went and visited them out of town, and when we sat down, we were like, um, we had, like, dinner with their whole family, and I noticed that one of the kids wasn't there, and I was like, "Well, what happened? Why isn't he there?" And they go, "Well, he's kinda cut himself off from the family." And I go, "Oh, why
mm,
like, what happened?" "Well, he went through a divorce." "Okay, well, why is he cut off from you guys?" And, "Well, he was really upset, and they really did things to each other, and they were upset that we were still, kinda wanting to, like, be a part," you
mhm,
explaining that they were trying to still be nice to the ex and, like, do all these things, and they go, "And he's just upset that we didn't wanna just, like, cut her off like, he wanted us to do." And I go, "Yeah."
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because 'cause you're his family,
yes,
Like, you understand that he was hurt by this person, and you telling him that, "Oh, it's okay, we're still gonna invite this person who abused you over," like,
well,
that
can I tell you, well, I was gonna say, Josh, it's so, and I so appreciate what you're saying, because the Switzerland friend, it makes the right mouth sounds, I call it. They say the thing that sounds like the mature thing to say, but they really, it isn't even that they're standing in the middle. They're actually at a distance, and it's because they're protecting themselves from their own discomfort. Because if you share your experience and then this person immediately, then they just zoom out and they minimize, what they're really saying is like, you know what, your pain is way too hard for me to deal with. I don't know what to do with your pain. So I'm just gonna step back here. Why don't you sort that out? And it's wild, because it goes back to, like, earlier when you said, if only people were, people aren't gonna be that honest with themselves. I mean, it's emotional avoidance. It's somebody saying, I am not willing to dig into your experience enough because I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to support you. And so it is a me issue. And it would be much easier for me if everybody just got along and that I don't have to think about it anymore. And and this is where I like saying that, okay, Switzerland person isn't that they're a bad person, but they're definitely conflict averse. They get emotionally uncomfortable, and you don't. And I think it's so important to know you don't have to take sides to take somebody seriously, because the more that somebody can understand what emotional immaturity is, it's like, I don't want to feel this way. So,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna push it off and you deal with it. And when you can learn that I can even say, I don't know how I can help you, but I want to understand you, but that
Yeah.
person's saying, if I stay neutral, then I stay safe. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, I
It
stay away from the word selfish because I know that it isn't done from a place of um, somebody being mean, but it speaks to their level of emotional maturity, if I'm being honest.
yeah, and I think it's just it the thing that's really interesting is, um, over the last 7, 8 years, I've gone through quite a fascinating time, and
Mm,
there's been some things just observing other people and looking through them and even just doing this podcast. There's a few things that are really fascinating to me about just the human condition and that, like, people are truly well-intentioned in hurting people,
yeah,
and they don't need and the thing is because they're well-intentioned, they don't they can't accept like, sometimes I've seen it where someone is really upset because someone else has said they're upset with them
yeah,
and or that they hurt them and they can't accept it, and you have to kind of explain the person's not telling you you're a bad person or that you did it intentionally. They're just saying you hurt them.
yep.
So there is a level of apology you do owe them, even though you didn't mean to do it.
It would be nice.
Like, it would be nice for you to recognize you did it,
Yeah,
right? And say, "I didn't mean to do it, but I
yeah,
did." You
yeah,
know, like, even just conversations that I've seen with, like, my own parents sometimes.
yeah,
My mother, by all accounts, when I was growing up, she's a saint, right? I
mm,
mean, she really put a lot into us, really did,
yeah,
did her best with what she had.
yeah. I like that.
But but there were some times where it did not go so well, right? And
Yeah,
like, sometimes trying to explain it, is hard
yeah.
because they don't want to accept it. Maybe her identity is so wrapped up in being a good mom that it was hard,
And
right?
that might speak to some of that. I mean, bless anybody's heart, confabulation, where it's like, I can't have been the person that wasn't there for you the way I thought I was. So
Yeah.
therefore, that didn't happen, and you're the one that doesn't remember it right.
Right, but I remember having a conversation with her where we were talking about something that happened when I was young, and I said, "Man, I wish that would have gone differently," and kinda got defensive about it, and I was like it wasn't until I finally was able to say to her, "I'm not saying you did it on purpose. I'm not saying you were malicious or that you intentionally tried to hurt me.
Yeah,
I know you were trying to do this because you thought it was best,
yeah,
right? You just got it wrong,
yeah,
Like, it just wasn't the right thing, and it hurt." And when I said it that way, I think it resonated better, but it's funny how, like, even just talking with my own kids, sometimes I'll talk to them and they'll tell me things about, like, because I have a lot of conversations. It's funny, one of my youngest daughter recently just told me, she's like, "Dad, why are we always having these, like, really deep conversations and, like, mental health stuff, and, like, why are do you think I'm some, like, mental health case or whatever?" And I'm just like, "No, no, I just think these are important conversations to have," and, but, like, sometimes I'll talk to my daughter and it'll be like, "Well, how do I say that better so that you can hear it better?" Right?
mhm,
And
yeah,
then they'll give me this long, long explanation where they're like, "Okay, you just gotta tell me, like, okay, I didn't mean understand, I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing that, and da, da, da," and I go, "Can't you just assume that that's all true and just let me say what I'm gonna say?" It just
yeah,
would cut the time down,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's a interesting, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting world. Let me go on to something different I wanted to
Okay.
talk to you about. One of the things that I've noticed is as therapy becomes more prevalent, it seems as though people's mental health, like the general public, is kind of in decline,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And um, I know there's an argument to be made that, well, maybe they already had these mental health issues, it just wasn't being talked about too much. And then there's some people out there who think, well, no, maybe we're promulgating some of this.
I have a
And I
hot
think
take, Josh. I have a hot take. Keep going.
okay, and then the other thing I would say also is I have noticed that, like for example, in my ward right now, in my congregation of the LDS church, there are 4, there might even be more, but I know there's at least 4 therapists in my ward of about 125 active people.
It's funny.
And there's 2 or 3 that are actually in school right now to become therapists.
Okay.
So I feel like that's a large percentage of people. So with the rise of more therapists and the decline of mental health, how do you as a mental health provider explain that?
Yeah, and boy, you teed this one up for me, and, if I had a soapbox in here, I would jump up on it because, I feel strongly about this, and this goes into the different therapy modalities, um,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna own these are all my own opinions, but when people get out of graduate school, most everyone, I am fairly confident, learns cognitive behavioral therapy, which is your thoughts lead to your emotions lead to your behaviors, and I think it's the basis of most every life coach, every motivational speaker. So it this is that mentality that you just need to change your thoughts. You just need to choose to be happy, and you will be. And
Mhm.
so, and it's all about positive mindset, and I am telling you that when it works, it's amazing and it's wonderful, and it works sometimes, and when it does, great. But it's also saying that then when things don't work out, you've got these, and okay, and for clarity, I was a cognitive behavioral therapist for about 7 or 8 years, so it's not like I'm just taking a shot at this. I practiced it, I lived it. So then somebody comes into your office and they say things like, "Man, I my girlfriend hasn't texted me back." I was about to say called me back. I've been doing this so long, but we'll go with the modern day example.
Right.
Texted me back, and so then, and then the guy says, "So she hates me." So then a cognitive behavioral therapist says, "Man, that's your automatic negative thoughts." Has a really cool acronym, an ant. So you're going to
Mhm.
stomp out those ants, or it's your stinking thinking because that rhymes. And so, what else can you think of that might be the case? And I'm convinced in that moment, it's the therapist. Well, I want to feel like I'm a good therapist. I want to feel like they're getting their money's worth. That's a me thing. I want validation. And the client is going like, "Oh, well, I need to be good at therapy. So maybe she fell asleep." And then I'm thinking, that one sounds good. Let's write it down. And then if she fell asleep, so we've changed your thought because your first thought was wrong. And don't you forget it. That was a negative thought. That was the stinking thinking. So you were thinking wrong. Put a pin in that one, right? And then, and now, what if she just fell asleep? How does that feel? Thoughts lead to emotions. Yeah, it feels better. Your behavior. Oh, I think I can leave here and not want to go run into traffic. So that sounds like a great session. So then the person leaves, and then she still hasn't called back in a couple of hours. And he's like, maybe she's still asleep. And he's like, oh no, she does not want to be with me. And then you get to tell yourself, I can't even do therapy right. Like, man, look how bad I am at therapy. So I'm going to come back the next week, and then we're going to run the game film over again. And there's a bunch of books, and they've got charts and lists, and identify your automatic negative thoughts, and then let's change them. And so it's but and here's the funny thing, and then I'll get into why I think there is still hope in the mental health field because of a different kind of therapy model. Um, I went so big on this for a number of years, and my intern is one of the people that, oh, he's licensed now, but Nate Christensen, one of my favorite people. I dig Nate so
Yeah.
much.
Had him
And
on the
Nate and I,
podcast.
right? Yeah. And Nate and I we would do supervision, and basically it's just, I love that. We would, cause I was his clinical supervisor, and we would meet a couple hours a week to go over cases and stuff. And, and one time, and he would hear me, I put everything through this next therapy lens act, acceptance and commitment therapy. We'll talk about that. And so one time Nate even said, he's like, CBT is not all bad. And I was almost like, how dare you, Nate? I'm your supervisor, and I'm preaching the gospel of acceptance and commitment therapy here. But then he said, but if somebody doesn't even want to be around, then isn't it fair to say that is a pretty negative thought? And then, and what's a better thought? Because in the CBT space, there's a pretty simple concept called wrong thought right. And even if somebody's wanting to act out like addiction, it's like, but that's the wrong thought. What's the right thought? And it's better than thinking I'm a big piece of garbage and I want to, run into traffic. So
Mhm.
it does have a place to go from I don't know what I to do to that's probably not the most accurate thought. And here's a better one. And so in that scenario, most likely it does help to have somebody there to say, try this. Here's a
Mhm.
thing. And even if that person is in such a low place that they do need somebody to suggest a thing or tell them what to do, it's a place to start from. So now enter the world of acceptance and commitment therapy. And when I was finishing up my internship, um, I was actually working for the church, and they had me go to a training. And it was funny. It was right when I was about to stop employment, because it's funny if I say right when I was about to leave church employment. And then I
Mm.
even said, I don't need to go to this training. And then my supervisor is this Dr. Jerry Harris, who's since passed. I loved him. I don't know if you knew Jerry because he was in the area.
I
No,
don't think so.
he was an amazing man. And then he just said, well, you're going to help this population. So how about you go to this training? So I go, and it was transformative, because I was working with somebody at that time, who had lost like a couple 100 pounds. I mean, they had lost a significant amount of their body weight, and they were in the single adult program, and they were coming to me because of this crippling anxiety, and they wanted a partner, they wanted a connection. They would enter an activity, and then people would look at him, and then he would just be met with tremendous amount of shame, and they think I look horrible and all this stuff. And I had honestly had 2 or 3 cognitive behavioral therapy sessions with him. What are some other things? Maybe they like your shirt. Maybe it's a sunny day outside. And then he had come back a couple of times, and he still just doesn't even want to go to these activities anymore. And he can't think the right things. He feels worse. And in the ACT training I went to, it was like right out of the gate. This is where I go big with the, so this guy is the only person that has ever been him, that has ever walked the face of the earth. And he has this unique combination of his nature, nurture, birth order, DNA abandonment, hopes, dreams, fears, childhood experiences. All of those make him him. So it turns out that he thinks and feels the way he does because he does. There's no negative thoughts. There's no wrong emotions. You start from a place of acceptance of, this is what I'm thinking. This is how I feel. So right away, you're not doing your own life wrong. And so
Mm.
when you start from that place, then all of a sudden the next session I have with them, I'm like, holy cow, who am I to tell him, yeah, that's a pretty negative thought, person I've never been you as. Earlier
Mm.
when you were saying, I like when you're talking about your daughter, and this is where I like going big on the, when I was a 14-year-old girl, here's the way I handled it. Because
Right.
I have no idea. So if I'm telling you what I think you should do, that I know that's kind of adorable, because I don't know what it feels like. I don't know what it feels like to be that person. So with this guy, now all of a sudden I was saying, wow, what was it like to be, how were you heavy as a kid? He's like, yeah, I was like pushing 400 pounds when I was 13 or 14. So then I just said, what was that like? Oh, when I would walk anywhere, everybody looked at me. So then it was like, well, no wonder it feels like everybody's judging you when they look at you. That
Yeah.
actually makes perfect sense. And it doesn't even have to make sense to me, because that's your experience. So gone is you're thinking wrong, and let me tell you how to think about it, because I've never been you. So you start with like, it's actually would be kind of crazy to not think that, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so from there with ACT, that is liberating. And it's funny when I
Mm.
even say that, because the guy that started it is a guy named Stephen Hayes. He's still alive. He was at the University of Nevada, Reno. And his book about it is called A Liberated Mind, because it does liberate you to know that, what if I'm okay? What if I'm actually going through life as me for the first time, and it just is. Because from there, now you really start to identify what your core values are, and everybody's values are pretty different, the combination of them.
Yeah.
So this guy had a value of connection. He really wanted to connect with another human. So now what's beautiful about it is, if he walks in that door and everybody looks at him, his brain is going to tell him a story of, they all think you look crazy, and then he gets to go, that is a story my brain's telling me, and I don't debate it. I don't have to argue with it. I know that that is a story. And then I say, thank you, brain. And I'm going to now invite that to come with me as I take action on a value of connection.
Yeah.
And you start realizing, man, my thoughts are not as powerful as I once thought they were. I don't
Yeah.
have to follow them. You see where
Well,
I'm going?
yeah, and I think that that is the ultimate idea of mindset.
Yeah.
Like, that's my view of it is, I think I say it in a little bit of a different way. Uh, I say it in a way of, it's almost just discipline, right? Like, it doesn't
Mm,
really matter how I'm feeling. Like, I've spent a lot of time working on,
I see. Yeah.
like, not like, divorcing my emotions from what I do. So,
I heard you say
like,
this on with Julie, and I liked it a lot on the Julie when Julie Lee was on. I like when you
yeah,
guys got into this part. Yeah, so talk about that.
yeah, yeah, like, I've just decided that it doesn't matter how I'm feeling, I'm just gonna do the things that I need to do. So, I kind of switch my brain into, these aren't things that I want to do, they're just things I have to do. So, like the gym, it's not a thing I wanna do, it's something I have to do because I wanna be healthy and it sets my day right. It's just something I do. I get up at 5 AM and I go to the gym and it's
Yeah.
automatic. It doesn't matter if I'm tired or I'm sad or I'm not feeling great or I had a rough night the night before, if I got in an argument with somebody or it doesn't matter. I just go, right?
Yeah.
And same thing, I get up, I make breakfast for my kids every single morning. That they get pancakes and sausage every single morning. So it's like, okay, I get up, I do it every morning with it's clockwork, right? I'm home
Yeah.
by this time, I do it this way. I take them to school, I go to work, pick them up, I come back, I work more, I do a podcast. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling. The stuff just gets done, right?
Yeah.
And if you have that mindset of, it doesn't matter if I'm sad or I'm not. I mean, I was actually having a conversation with my kids about this. I was like, every single time I've ever walked into a courtroom for a trial, I have been scared out of my mind.
Yeah.
If I let that stop me, I would have never had the success I've had in trials, right?
Mm.
I you know, I was scared to death to walk on the plane when I went on a mission. That was a seminal moment in my life that changed it in my view for the better.
Mm.
Like, if I would have said, "I don't really wanna do this. I'm feeling sick to my stomach even thinking about spending 2 years away from everybody I know and love and being with a bunch of random dudes who are a little weird that I'm hanging out with all guys and being
Yeah.
within arm's length of a guy all the time and never touching a girl, that's a little weird," you know?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
like, if I would have worried about that then and not done it, I wouldn't have had this transformative experience that has just completely changed my life.
Yeah.
So, same thing with, like, law school. If I would have been like, "This is really hard and I'm not feeling like doing it," I wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
And so,
I was
go ahead.
you go.
No, I was just gonna say, I said so I think that, like, when I talk about mindset or faith, it's really not a positive thing for me. It's not like it's a positive mindset, everything's gonna be great and successful. I'm saying it doesn't matter if it's success or failure, I'm gonna do what I need to do. If it's gonna be a terrible day, the stuff is still gonna get done, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, let
Does that
me,
make sense?
I so like that. I'm gonna go a couple of directions here. One, I wanna read to you, there's 2 definitions of happiness in the world of acceptance and commitment therapy, and this is from a book called The Happiness Trap, and this was one of the things also I remember from that training, and I think about this often. So, this author, Russ Harris, says, "The word happiness has 2 very different meanings. The common meaning of the word is feeling good. In other words, feeling a sense of pleasure, gladness, or gratification. We all enjoy those feelings, so it's no surprise we chase after them. But like all human emotion, feelings of happiness don't last. No matter how hard we try to hold on to them, they slip away every time. And as we shall see, a life spent in pursuit of those good feelings is, in the long term, deeply unsatisfying. In fact, the harder we chase after pleasurable feelings, the more likely we are to suffer from anxiety and depression." So this is
Mm,
part of that. If I think I'm already doing it wrong and all I'm trying to do is feel better all the time, then I'm starting from this already place of I'm broken. I'm
mhm,
I'm not doing my own life right and I just need to be happy. And if I was happy, then everything would go well. And then they say the other far less common meaning of happiness is living a rich, full, and meaningful life. When we take action on the things that truly matter, deepen our hearts, move in directions we consider valuable and worthy, clarify what we stand for in life, and act accordingly, then our lives become rich and full and meaningful, and we experience a sense of vitality. It's not a fleeting feeling, it's a profound sense of a life well lived. And I love this part that he says, and although such a life will undoubtedly give us many pleasurable feelings, so sometimes it will be fun and I will be happy, it's also going to give us uncomfortable ones, such as sadness and fear and anger. And that's to be expected because if we live a full life, we'll have the full range of human emotion. So
yeah,
I kind of wonder if it ties into what we were talking about off the mic and then a little bit here of a little bit of the therapy culture, the quick sound bites is just do this and you will be happy. And people think I want to be happy, and then I do
yeah,
this thing or I follow this advice from a person that isn't maybe even qualified, or it is just a sound bite of a bigger thing, and I'm still not happy. So what's wrong with me? And now I'm going to go chase after the next thing that I think will make me happy instead
mhm,
of slowing things down and saying, okay, what do I want? What direction do I want to go in my life? And then to start taking action on that. And what is so cool about, and going back to your thing about, so I think this is why the more we talk about mental health with the tools that most of it is talked about, the more people are being reinforced that they're not doing their life right. And if they would just do this thing, then they'll be better. And then when it doesn't work, then something's really wrong with them. And then they chase the next thing, the next book, the next guru, the next therapist, the next account, when in reality, they need to stop and figure out who they are. And in ACT, it I don't think any of us really have an idea of what our core values are, what we really care about, because we start from a place of, "What do I think I'm supposed to care about?" "What are my parents' values? What are my church's values?" And and so if I'm trying to live this value that I really don't even really connect with, in the ACT space, we say that you're living a life of socially compliant goals. You're doing the things you think you're supposed to do, but you don't even really wanna do them. And if you're doing these things that you think you're supposed to, but you don't enjoy doing them, you're gonna turn to, this concept of experiential avoidance. I'm gonna do anything else other than the thing I think I'm supposed to do that I don't even like doing. And at that point, then I'm gonna watch another episode of something. I'm gonna spend more time on YouTube. I'm gonna more time on TikTok. I'm gonna play another game because I don't even want to do the thing that I think I'm supposed to do. And that must mean that something's wrong with me and I just need to think about it differently. So do you kind of see where it starts to stack up of it's no wonder that anxiety is up and depression is up because people just think they are doing their own lives completely wrong?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I also but and you tell me if you disagree with this.
Okay.
I think also, um, I have noticed a lot in the therapy spaces that I have seen, there's a lot of explanations with
Mhm.
a lot of how-tos.
Oh, 100%.
So
Yes.
so,
Very
like,
much.
we have a lot of, like, "Oh, yeah, you have anxiety because X, Y, and Z happened to you when you were a child, and your mom did this, or, whatever, this happened to you, and of
Yeah.
course you're feeling this anxiety, and you have this by the way, you have this chemical imbalance that makes you anxious." You have this thing, and maybe if you just take this pill, that'll make you feel better. And I think what ends up happening there is some people will take that and go, "Well, my brain just does this, so
Yes.
it's not my fault."
Yeah.
So I freeze, and that's okay. And the thing is it's like, I agree with everything up to that's okay, right?
Yeah.
And when you talk to somebody who's been through some of this, sometimes they get really upset with you when you say that. Like, "Oh, I'm not broken." You're not broken, but it's also not okay, because if you're letting it stop you from doing something that you either should do or want to do, then it's ruling you and you're not ruling it. Am I right on that or am I
You
wrong on
you you yes, and I so appreciate this is where I dig that, you and I go way back because it's maybe it's like even the good, better, best concept because
that? Mhm,
what I see, the people that come into my office are still in this place of, um, even who is it that gets to tell them that this is what they should be doing or
mhm,
that they need to do it a different way? And so often, and again, it goes back to like this deep level of immaturity of a lot of people are frozen at their core of doing the wrong thing. And so even when they start to try to do a thing that they think might be what they want to do, they're still needing somebody else to tell them that that's okay to do. And then so the game's already a little bit rigged there because and if I take a step even further back, because I deal with a lot of people that are navigating good old faith journeys or faith deconstructions, or I mean, more than half my practice. And I think it's important to note that when we start off with for the most part, there's a right way to do things that makes everything else the wrong way. So then if somebody's just going through life and they want to do a thing, now they're already saying, okay, is that the right thing or the wrong thing? And I can give a really simple example of this is, in in our faith dynamic, um, nobody wants to watch football on Sundays because that's the wrong thing. Or, but if the person really does want to, then they're like, "Okay, so obviously I'm bad because I wanna do the wrong thing." So now when somebody asks me a question about it, and this is not where I am at even close these days, but there was a time where it was like, "Okay, I gotta say the right thing." "Oh, no, it doesn't bother me." Where, I grew up as a kid loving football on Sundays, like, that was such an important thing, and then I was so bummed that I had to stop doing it because I didn't wanna do the wrong thing. And then
mhm,
I'm gonna tell people that, "No, I don't even care about it anymore," but I do. So I gotta figure that out because I still want to. So why am I still wanting to do the wrong thing? And so what if you just wanted to do a thing and it wasn't judged as right or wrong? So when the game already starts off as a lot of my thoughts are wrong, then I need somebody to tell me that, what the right thing is, and then I'm seeking validation from, a person that's gonna tell me, "Okay, good. You don't wanna do that thing anymore, then you're good." And
mm,
but if I still secretly want to, I'm still carrying this guilt or shame of what is wrong with me? Why can't I just do the right things? And You see where I'm going?
I do see where you're going, and in just in the context of the faith crisis, particularly in the LDS Church, I think there's way too much emphasis. There's almost like a Pharisees,
Uh-huh.
Sadducees
I think so
thing
too.
going on that's a huge problem. And, that very thing that you're talking about, football on Sundays, it really resonates with me because I remember having a conversation with a guy about this after an elders quorum meeting where we were talking about keeping the Sabbath day holy, and he goes, "I just don't think you should be watching TV on Sundays." And I said, "Well, hold on a second, let me ask you a question about that." So my dad and I did not have the greatest of relationships growing up.
Yeah.
I really struggled with him. There was a lot of reasons why I've been very open about it here on the podcast. I go, "But on Sundays, he would barbecue and we would watch basketball together. We
Mm.
would turn it on, they'd have during the playoffs, there'd be triple headers.
Yeah.
We would come home from church, we'd get into our regular clothes, and then we would just watch basketball all day together, eat, burgers, steaks, hot dogs, and then every Sunday night, Simpsons were on at 8 o'clock. We
Oh,
watched
yeah, look
Simpsons
at
at 8
you.
o'clock. And I was like, that was a staple in our home every Sunday on 8 o'clock. I was there with my whole family at 8 o'clock on Sundays watching The Simpsons.
Yeah.
You tell me, am I
Even though it
keeping
was
the
bad.
Sabbath day holy?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
you tell me
Yeah,
if I'm keeping the Sabbath day holy. And wouldn't you know it, I've never been to a temple recommend interview where someone has told me, has said, um, I've never had someone, in a temple recommend interview ask me if I keep the Sabbath day holy, and I say yes, and they go, "Oh, but are you watching TV on Sundays?"
right.
Right? And so, I whenever I have this issue with people who are having shame or guilt or whatever, or they're maybe being a little judgmental, I always say, "Hey, can the person answer all of the temple recommend questions accurately and get a recommend? Then nothing else matters." Right? That is it. That is being recommended to God, right? And they get to interpret what that means,
Yeah.
right?
What
They get to interpret what that means.
and what I love about this is, and I know this is the thing where why I love my job so much, and, is that you are right, and then I deal with the people that are having the human experience. So there are people that will hear that, and then they still don't feel good about it. And so then they will think I am still doing something wrong. And there's a lot of religious OCD in like a higher demand religion, scrupulosity,
Right.
where okay, I
Right.
said it, but I still don't feel good. So I must not be doing it right. So then I need to go confess more. And people get to the point where they over confess things because they just want to make sure. And so there's a lot of this. It still kind of comes from this place of, um, I don't feel good about whatever it is because I'm obviously bad. And can I share something with you that it's going to maybe sound like we're going a little bit different directions? But I just put out
Sure.
this episode where I talk often about shame. Shame isn't helpful. I've never worked with anybody where shame's been the cure. If it was, then I wouldn't even have a job because people are really good at beating themselves up.
Mhm.
But there's this Franciscan priest named Father Richard Rohr that I'd had a couple people recommend that I listened to some of his content, and he said this thing that I thought was really good. He just said that we've gotten obsessed with the notion that sin is a moral category, and then that immediately puts you into this lane of judgment, reward, and punishment. And he said if we would have stayed in the Jesus lane, we would have said that the issue isn't sin, but brokenness and the need for healing. And I really love that idea of like this need for healing because I think that's what people are trying to come to church for or turn to others for is help healing, not to feel judged or shamed or, to be told the things that they're doing wrong. And, and, and what I think is so fascinating, and as somebody that gets to sit with people often, is if this stuff is intergenerational. It's, people have learned from models, unhealthy models from their parents. And this Father Richard Rohr said this just beautiful thing where he said uh, that he said it's not one person's sin, it's a sin of my culture, my nationality, my family, my inheritance. And he said this is the part that lands that doesn't deserve judgment, that it deserves sympathy and healing. And so I wrote this piece out about why this matters to me clinically is because I see people coming in all the time and they're showing up and they're doing the work and they're trying to be better people and humans and partners. But then somewhere deep in their operating system, they still just say, man, but I'm still bad. I still do these things that I wish I wouldn't do. I'm still this sinner and I'm broken. And what's wrong with me? Like how often people default back to the what's wrong with me story that their brain's hooking them to. And then that that doesn't produce healing. It continues to produce more shame and more guilt. And shame produces rigidity and hiding and people that white knuckle themselves through trying to overcome, addictions. And so this is the part that I really wanted to land is I was thinking, okay, I don't really even think shame gets installed in a church. It gets installed in a car ride home, with your parent
Yeah.
or at home. So you're 4 and you're doing what 4-year-olds do. You're clumsy and you break things and you say something you were told not to say, or you do something that you were told not to do, even though you have no idea why you're not supposed to do it, which is really interesting. Now that I have a grandson, how many times, like last night, we're laughing at him when he knocks stuff over, but other times if he knocks stuff over, hey bud, don't knock stuff over. And he's like, he has no idea what's going on, why am I getting praise one time and the next time everybody's like mad at me? Like I don't understand how this game is played. And so then you don't understand why you're doing those things that you do, and now your parent gets upset. And I was thinking about this, like they need something from you. They need you to show them that you know what you did was wrong, and so they need the apology. They need you to make the face to look sad or sorry, and and then you learn. And I'm saying this with compassion for the parents because they're running their own inherited programming. But all of a sudden, if the kid doesn't show that you're right, I know I did bad, or I don't make the right face, or say the right thing, then the parents even thinking, man, I haven't taught this kid anything. So the kid performs, and basically, I think kids learn to read the room, and they figure out what expression do I need to make the big scary moment stop, and then here's where this is a big moment because it's so subtle that I don't think anybody notices, but a 4-year-old doesn't have what I'm calling this cognitive architecture to separate I did a bad thing versus I am bad. And at that moment, those concepts become fused and they're one. And I think that's where basically shame gets installed. Not even guilt that says, okay, I did something that I would like to repair, but it's like, I'm bad. Now that kid grows up and they walk into a church and somebody says, hey, you're a sinner. You shouldn't have done that. And it doesn't even feel new. It feels very familiar to them, and then it confirms the thing that they've been telling themselves or feeling their whole lives. It's like, you're right, I am a sinner, so I better confess this thing, and something's wrong with me. And so then the whole system kind of reinforces it, because if you don't show that you are repentant or that you are sad or you are broken, then you're not getting the validation, and you don't get the you don't get the callings, you don't rise up the ranks. And so then what I think is so wild there is that we learn to perform remorse, or we learn to like perform apology, and it can just feel so insincere. And so then now go back to act, which is why I love it so much. Is this is where it gets kind of cleaner, because what shame is clinically is this cognitive fusion. I'm fusing to the story that is incredibly destructive. That it's not that, oh, I'm noticing that I'm feeling like I did something wrong. It's like I am wrong. I am bad. And then the thought and the self are basically one thing. And so then what does like this traditional sin framework do is it says, okay, now go and walk into a room and declare that you're a sinner. And now you need to fuse with the most painful story you can tell about yourself. But you're also being told that is the path to freedom. And so to me, like, freedom isn't fusing to the I'm bad, what's wrong with me, I need to be performative. It's defusing and realizing I'm a human, having a human experience, and I'm going through life the first time, and this is how I'm doing it. And then I need somebody. And now I need somebody there that can help me, not judge me, not shame me, and not even tell me what to do, but to say, man, what do you need? Like, I'm here for you. And I'll get
Yeah.
off my soapbox.
You know what? It's funny. You brought a lot of stuff in there. That what I was thinking about is there's so many things that I can unpack
Mm,
that I think adds to that. The first thing is that, like, I don't think people realize how individual that this religious experience within this high demand religion of LDS Church is supposed to be.
it's supposed to
But
be.
as
Yes.
I give an example, like, my next door neighbor was my stake president for a while. Now he's the temple president. Not to out him or anything, but we were he invited me over for dinner one time, and I'm over there having dinner with him, and my kids are all there and all that, and he goes, he's like, "So how's your Sunday going?" And I go, Giants won. It's going great." He goes, "Oh, we don't watch for sports on Sunday." And I'm like, "Ooh, okay, got it. See what kind of household this is, right? Stake
Yeah.
president, forgot." So then he was like, so then, and we had just moved in, and he goes, "Your kid's getting a lot of use out of that pool." And I go, well, they would love to do it today, but wouldn't you know it, I don't let my kids swim on Sunday, right?" And he goes, "Well, I hope you don't judge me too much. I just want to let you know that my grandkids often come over on Sundays, and I let them swim in the pool." Right?
Yes.
And I was like, "Huh." Now, we could both go to a temple recommend interview, and they're gonna ask us if we keep the Sabbath day holy, and either one of us is gonna believe that we are, right?
Yeah.
Who's right, who's wrong?
Oh,
And the
absolutely.
the other thing is that, like, this concept, I don't understand why we rank sins in the church. Like, it just seems like, and maybe it has something to do with the structure of the discipline process within.
Yeah.
Really, I have a lot of feelings on that I won't
Yeah.
share here publicly, but, it's really interesting because if you think about the entire structure of Christianity, the it the standard is aspirational, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, when I always joke when people go, "Oh, man, yeah, Christians are hypocrites." Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's the point, right? Yes, we are. We have this aspirational view, "Be ye therefore perfect," right? And then none of us are,
Right.
right? So, we're all hypocrites. That's the point of having a savior. We have a moral base that we all fall short of all the time. Every day we fall short of that perfection, and then we have a savior that comes in and atones for the sins and rectifies those wrongs so we can try again and get better. And I was like, and yet, so I don't understand why people have such shame for the things that they've done wrong, instead of just accepting that it's part of the human experience. I shared this with the one on Julie, and I'll share it a truncated version today. We know in our doctrine that we were among in the pre-existence. We believe there was a pre-existence where a plan was presented to us, and the plan presented to us was we were going to be able to choose for ourselves, and we believe that there was a large contingent of the people there who didn't want that agency to make that choice. They didn't want to do that, so they left. They didn't come here. They became agents of the devil, and they
Mhm.
torment us with this choice that we have. That's the view. Well, I've kinda developed in my own view that I think that part of that agency, what was, because I've often asked myself, I'm like, "What is it? What is it that made those that third of the host of heaven not want to take it?" Right? Like, "I don't want that. That sounds terrible."
Yeah.
I bet there was a portion of that it was probably explained to us that we were gonna use that agency to choose evil, and when we do, we were gonna hurt each other. And, like,
Mm.
we were gonna get hurt by it, right? And we were
Yeah.
gonna hurt ourselves, and we were gonna hurt other people, and it was gonna feel terrible, but with the atonement, we'll be able to learn from those experiences, grow, rectify all those things, and it'll be all okay. And we know in October of 2024, Brooke D. Hales gave a talk about mortality works. He shared an anecdotal story about a man who goes to the temple, and his mom had a terrible life, and he didn't understand what she had to go through all those things. And he had an experience where his mother he felt his mother saying, "Mortality works. I now understand why everything happened the way that it did, and it's all okay." And so, if you believe that's true, and maybe people listening to this who are in a faith crisis don't, right?
Yeah.
But
For
if
sure.
you believe that's true, when we before we came here, we shouted for joy at the concept of coming down here and having choices. And then at the end, we're gonna understand it. But then we're here and we're like, "Why do I have to go through this? I don't understand. Why am I having to go through this specific thing?" And when you think about it that way, it's kinda silly,
Oh,
like,
yes.
uh, because the other concept I think is so interesting about this is, and I've shared this, and I don't understand this, and you probably know this, I know we've had a lot of conversations where, every bad thing that's ever, quote unquote bad thing that's ever happened to me, I come back, a decade later, and I look back and I go, "Man, that happened exactly the way it needed to happen,"
For sure.
you know? But then I get in the next one and I'm like, "Oh, man, this is the one,
Why
this is the
me?
one,
What's this?
this is
Yeah.
the one,
Right.
this is the
So
one."
if I can go big on this too, Josh, and so I and I really am at this place and have been for a while now where I really don't even like to think of things in terms of right, wrong. I think it's such a hindsight principle because if somebody
Mhm.
does a thing and everybody likes it, they did it right, and somebody else can say I don't like it, and it's oh man, I thought I did it right, but I did it wrong. And it goes back to that act thing of if I'm going through life as the very first time as me and that is happening, every single moment of my life is the first time I've been me in this situation. So why is it that I still need to think I'm doing it wrong? And
Mhm.
it's going to sound so it's more from this world of Zen Buddhism where what if it just is and this is
Uh,
how I am showing up. This is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm reacting. And what back to act talks so much about with that concept I can view myself in the context of this moment and it just is. And that way I can give myself grace, I can learn. But anytime I'm going back to that, I blew it, I did it wrong, I still feel like that's this childhood wound that's saying, I need somebody else to tell me it's okay. So,
mhm,
and I can even go further here, and I love this concept when I get to speak about this, and I talk about, and I've probably told you this already, but the concept of the atonement. Whenever I talk about that one, I want to say whether somebody believes it literally or metaphorically. I think the concept around that, and this is why I love kind of poking holes in the whole idea of sin, because
mhm,
it's such a judgmental thing. That what if I'm just behaving and this is what I'm doing, and then I go to the atonement, and I think the idea of Christ having felt everything. He has perfect empathy. He's the great empath, and so and I think that concept is beautiful because people typically go to somebody and say, "Am I okay?" It could be a church leader, it could be a friend, and that's where they're saying, even if somebody says, I know exactly how you feel, doesn't land because it goes back to nobody knows exactly what it feels like to be you or me because of all these things that make us us. So I think it's a little bit silly to go to somebody and ask that person, do you think I'm okay? Because I'm asking a person that knows nothing about what it feels like to be me. So the concept of the atonement is beautiful because go back to nobody knows what it feels like to be you. Save it be for a savior, and he has said you're good. So what if
yeah,
I'm okay? And then that is, and kind of going back to like the therapy idea. I don't even think it's as productive to go to the therapist and say I'm okay. My job is to stand beside you, and we're going to figure it out because I already know you're okay. I already know you're going through life for the first time and I kind of have to get you on board with that. But now add this my latest thought around this is now look at God as the most differentiated parent that has ever lived because he doesn't feel like he's done something wrong if I have my agency and I do a bunch of things that he didn't anticipate. If I decide I want to be a whatever and he thought I'd do something different, because he's good. So, and then his love is unconditional. He loves us the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So that's a pretty cool concept to think. I think that's secure attachment. And so if I think he's mad at me, that's a me thing because
mhm,
he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and his love's unconditional. So if you've got that kind of a secure attachment to a parent and you've got a savior figure that is telling you as well, I think you're good. And I'm the only person that has felt the things you felt. So stop trying to get other people to tell you you're okay. Now, and I did have to go find the ideal definition of repentance, but it's the one about turning toward. So if I'm turning toward a securely attached, loving Heavenly Father who loves me because He loves me because He loves me, and then and I'm good, and then He's like, yeah, go keep doing the stuff. Then man, I'm now all of a sudden life is a little bit more. Um, it's a little easier to be present. It's a little easier to go through those moments where, like you said, where I now have a fair amount of confidence that this is happening.
yeah,
Noticing the thought that this stinks. Not even
yeah,
arguing that, kind of does. But I'm here, and this is part of the human experience. And God, you mad at me? It's like, nope, you're good. You know. And do I even need to go ask somebody like, do you think what I'm doing is right? Because nah, I mean the concept of the atonement's got that down and all of a sudden, like, I think I'm okay.
yeah,
And when everybody's telling you, "No, you're not," then now I get to say, "Oh, tell me more about that." Like, again, how what did you do when you were me? Because I will listen to that. That is
right,
fair. But short of that, I'm good.
yeah, yeah. I think, man, I think there's so much to unpack there. I think that the big thing ultimately is to know that I don't think God wants you to be filled with shame
I
over
don't
what
think
you've
so.
done. I think that, the guilt part is there to inform you that's not a good plan. That's not a
Yeah.
good idea. But I think that's the thing that's good about God. People wonder why did God do the things that he does or let things happen? Well, that's kinda he's a little hands off in that way. He goes, he tells you what not to do, and then you do it, and you go, "Okay, see how it works out for you," and then it doesn't work out, and goes, "Okay, you gonna listen now?" Right? Like, that's and so, Anyhow, you have a heart out, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It's funny, I just looked and the person's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna be a couple minutes late," and I just gave him a thumbs up, Josh. So,
Yeah, well, good.
but this
Well,
was good. We got 2 hours, and it's so funny because I could go more. We never
I know.
even
I
like, that
know.
was that the therapy culture, and I wanna have you on my podcast, and I wanna run this on mine. So, hi, virtual couch listeners. Thanks for hanging in here. Josh is a good guy, and I
Yeah.
wanna have you come on mine, because, yeah, I could talk to you all day, and it's fun to just I like the flow of it. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll have to do this again. We'll have to get Julie on it too. We'll
oh,
do
yeah, I
the
want the
all
three-man
3
weave.
of us, and we'll just kinda talk about these things. There's so many more topics we can go on, and it's so great when you have a great podcast and you're like, "Oh, crap, it's been 2 hours."
I know, that's
You
nuts.
know
Like,
what I
it's
mean?
so I love it. I don't
Yeah,
even yeah, I would say I'm so brave, I don't even have to go to the bathroom, Josh. That's how
I know.
good it feels, right?
Awesome. Well, for
Okay.
those of you who've listened, where can they follow your stuff?
Yeah, so please, TonyOverbay.com, but I think that's what old people say now, the website, but on Instagram at virtual.couch, on TikTok at virtual couch. I've got a Substack that's, growing and growing, so substack.thevirtualcouch.com. I've got a men's emotional architects group that will be starting soon that I'm
Mm,
hoping to talk you into playing a part of or
okay.
helping men become more emotionally mature. I've got a
That's not
re
gonna you're not gonna want me to help with that. It's just
I insert joke
it'll
there.
be all
We need
it'll
a
be all burps
muse that
and fart it'll be
right, to
all
interact.
burps and farts, and
Yeah,
so
well, that's not a bad idea. And then I'm revamping my magnetic marriage course. So if people go to tonyoverbay.com/magnetic, you can get on a wait list there. I got a faith crisis thing coming, a faith deconstruction course coming up. I love what I do so much. And so I've got a lot of stuff, a lot of content, and go find it all. There we go.
awesome. Alright, well, Tony,
Okay.
it's always a pleasure. We'll have you back on for sure.
Thanks, Josh. That was a blast. Thank you.
Alright, man.
Okay.
We'll see you.
All right. Hey, see you, Josh, for real. I appreciate you. That was
Yeah.
fun.